I think it was 8 years ago, I built my first aquarium water bridge. I was just doing it for fun. I thought that it would be cool to use some scrap glass that I had laying around and kind of build a contraption that would allow fish to swim from one tank into the other, going above the tank, increasing overall volume of the water, as well as allowing them to have a couple of different territories and get to see some fish swimming through their bridge. But building an aquarium bridge for 2 existing aquariums using materials that I already had on hand that I was kind of limited to, but coming up with a design that anybody could kind of copy and replicate on their own so easily, I thought, what if I took it seriously? What if I really tried to build something a little cooler? Mind you, it's easy to build, take a couple days and build a pretty big tank. Heck, you could take a week and build a couple of pretty big tanks. But of course, my idea was to not only build 1 fish tank, not 2 fish tanks, but 3 fish tanks, and then figure out a way to build a bridge to connect all 3. But we made it happen. And here's how I did it. Okay, so first and foremost, I wanted to build this out of acrylic simply because it's much easier to machine. Where I get my acrylic, based on the sizes that I wanted to go with and how much acrylic I wanted to buy, I went with 10mm thick cell cast acrylic. I also made this happen with 1 sheet of 8x4 acrylic. When you buy a sheet of acrylic, it comes 8 feet long, 4 feet wide. I had to create a cut sheet first. Make sure all the pieces and parts will fit into it. And then of course, I can cut it up myself with my $500 saw, or I can pay the acrylic place $40 to cut it up with their $20,000 saw and just pick up all the pieces and put it together. So I get the acrylic home and I decide I'm going to start off with the bridge. It's the most complicated portion of the entire build, and I have never built one like this before that connects 3 aquariums. So to be fair, I was nervous. I was nervous that I wasn't going to make this be able to hold it together, whether it would hold water, or if I would be able to build it with the exact dimensions to perfectly space these in a span that I wanted in the gallery. There's a lot of things to consider, so I started off with the smallest pieces. And like I said, I've never built one of these before, so I don't know what we're gonna be calling these pieces, but let's call these smaller spots like the archways. Then the back of the bridge with the top of the bridge secured. With the archways curing and the top panel on the side panel curing, I went ahead and attached the end panels. What I was trying to create here was a structure so that I could put on the final panel and it would have something to actually sit up against and not have to create some sort of a structure to hold everything up. Now, typically speaking, I use a water-thin cement to cement the edges of an acrylic aquarium. But when it came to this, I didn't really I didn't have the proper platform to build this on. Having a flat desk is great, but I needed to be able to get under this with clamps and I just couldn't make it happen. So I used a thicker cement, almost like very runny silicone to do those seams. Lined it all up and then simply placed that panel down and weighted it down. Of course, now that stuff takes much longer to cure, and or at least you have to wait a few hours before you can start messing with it again. So I moved on to building all 3 tanks at once. As always, we'll do the front, the sides, and the back panel first, and then once those are done, we take them and put them onto the base of the tank. Now, even though everything was cut precisely to size and exactly what I needed it to be, I always kind of push the sides in a little bit just to ensure I have a little bit of overhang that I can router off to make them absolutely perfect. Because when you're doing this by hand, sometimes it'll move or something might not line up exactly perfectly and you might not get a finished edge. So I love making things slightly a millimeter or 2 smaller than they're supposed to be. Just so I can come back and create a snowstorm in the gallery because it's winter in Canada and apparently I'm not getting enough snow. I router off all the excess acrylic and then I round them with another router bit that lets me have more of a finished edge, finally coming back to it with a matte gas torch to polish the edges. And I gotta say, these things turned out absolutely beautiful. The dimensions of these 3 individual tanks, they're 12 by 12 by 12, a foot by a foot by a foot, 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters, roughly, anyways. It's a 7.5 gallon cube, 7.5, 7.5, 7.5. The bridge is also 7.5 gallons, making this a total of 30 gallon system. The bridge is where things got complicated. When I was putting the bridge together, I was stressing about how I'm going to create these archways. And I realized It's not about creating the archways right now, because I thought to myself, why don't I just cut out the notches and then cement it together? That would have made the clamping process so much easier. But I also knew that if I put them on in advance and routed them out, I'd have a much cleaner look. So we did just that. Finally, routing off all the edges. It is a little messy with some of the thicker acrylic cement that I used, but the seams are great in most places. I don't need this to be beautiful. I need it to hold water, and I need it to be airtight. There can't even be a pinhole in this. One little pinhole, air slowly starts to leak into this, and all that water has to go somewhere. It's gonna go into those tanks, and those tanks are already gonna be filled. I'm just gonna end up flooding the area. Now a bit of a blooper. I know that sometimes I make things look so easy, and that's not me thinking that. That's me reading your comments and being like, Joe, you make this stuff look so easy. Sometimes it's not, and sometimes I screw things up, including light my aquariums on fire. Did I mention acrylic is flammable? And when you're using the MAP torch, it burns hotter than propane. And if you spend too much time in one place, you won't even notice that it's caught on fire until you're like way off. So there's been parts of this and the tanks themselves that have been victim to fires. Only twice though. Two times is acceptable, 3 times unacceptable. So we have our 3 aquariums. And these 3 aquariums get evenly spaced by what I would estimate to be, I'll just get a measuring tape just a second. 7 inches. So they're spaced by 7 inches. Not a massive gap in between them, but I wanted the bridge to only be 4 foot long because, like I said, the acrylic sheet is 8 by 4. And in order to fit all of this into one sheet, plus there's extra acrylic to build another tank. Maybe we'll do something with that in the near future, but the focus was on making this 4 feet long, so the tanks are spread 4 feet, and it can go onto a stand that is 4 feet to fit a perfect place that we've designed this small little area around, and everything's going to be matching. It's going to be beautiful. How do these even work? Well, of course, we're going to fill these tanks up with water, and as the tanks fill up with water, I've shown you how this works before, gets to the top, and obviously the air is going to be trapped in here. All we have to do is suck water out. All that water is going to start sucking in. We continue to fill these tanks, and it completely floods the entire bridge. This whole system's only 30 gallons. We can add a filter to one side, and the intake of a filter to one side, the output to another, and it will filter all 3 through the bridge. Fish will be able to swim up through the bottom and all the way over to the other sides. Now, I did make the openings. Well, the bridge itself is 6.5 inches by 48 inches and 6 inches tall. So it's actually a pretty sizable bridge inside the aquariums. The openings are 10 inches by 6 inches as well. So it's like half of the aquariums themselves have access to the bridge. I didn't want fish like kind of fumbling and maybe going up in there. I wanted them to feel like this is a part of their environment. Now, of course, the question's gotta be, how are you ever gonna clean this? Couple of things. I mean, we clean these with algae magnets, for example. I could put an algae magnet in here. I'm not going to be growing a ton of plants in this system, so I'm not gonna have highlight anyway. But worst case scenario, I do 50% water changes on all of these, remove the suction out of here, and simply clean it out by hand. You know, take it off, stick my hand right in there and start and clean it with a rag or something. Odds of me having to do that, pretty darn slim. But the question has to be, first and foremost, does this hold water? I don't know. I haven't water tested it yet. I just wanted to get this video out to you guys and show you the initial build. I mean, building 3 tanks and a water bridge in one video is already pretty intense. So I'll have to run water tests on each aquarium for a few days, as well as the bridge. To do the water test on the bridge, I'm flipping it upside down, and I'll just fill it up. Water will come up to the top, and I'll just watch for leaks around the apparent areas that it can leak. If it does leak, I'll take some of that thicker cement and just line the edges like you would in a glass aquarium with the silicone seams. But the question remains, what do we stock these aquariums with? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. I'm gonna get to water testing this shortly, building the stand, figuring out filtration as well as lighting. There's a ton more things to do, so if you don't wanna miss any of this, make sure you subscribe to this channel if you're not already. See you guys in the next video.